Why am I so anxious? If you've been struggling with anxiety, you've probably asked yourself that very question many times. But it's not down to stress, it's not because you're weak, and it's not coded into your genes. The real reason is far simpler and much more hopeful. The real reason you stay anxious is because you've started to fear anxiety itself. In this week's video, I explain exactly how this happens, how it keeps you stuck, and most importantly, how we get past that. For nearly 15 years now, I've been helping people get control of their anxiety response, and I've noticed that part of the problem my clients have when they arrive comes from the idea that they're attributing their anxiety to something outside of their control, their stressful environment, their genetics, or maybe even some permanent chemical imbalance. This just kind of gets them stuck with the idea that there are aspects of this that can't be changed. But in my experience, it all really comes down to one main thing. And until you know this one thing, you'll very likely remain stuck in the same anxiety loop with zero option to change. So let's talk about it. The truth is, anxiety never starts out as a problem. Anxiety is just an emotion, and all emotions are healthy and natural. The real issue, the number one reason people stay anxious, is when they start to fear anxiety itself. Here's how it happens. Firstly, you feel anxious about something. It could be anything. After all, we all experience anxiety every single day. It's an ever-present emotional strategy for focusing our mind on the important issues in life, and at times, even the not so important ones. Then for some reason you decide that feeling anxious must mean something's gone wrong with you, or that your mind or body is malfunctioning. You've basically started to notice how anxious you feel, and it's felt excessive or inappropriate enough for you to conclude that it's you that's the problem, not the other external stuff you've been anxious about. Now the thing you're anxious about is anxiety itself, and that causes the problem of the feedback loop. Your mind uses anxiety to focus you on the issue at hand, but the issue at hand is anxiety. So as a strategy for dealing with the anxiety issue, you end up creating more of it. Now on top of the original anxiety, you're anxious about the fact you're anxious. You've probably experienced this if you've ever panicked about physical sensations. Maybe your heart racing, your chest feeling tight, or your head going dizzy. The sensations themselves aren't dangerous, but the story you tell yourself about them, that's what makes them feel terrifying. And so anxiety about anxiety becomes the real problem. Now, why do we fall into this trap? Well, for a start, we're often taught from an early age that feeling anxious is somehow a bad sign, that it means we're not coping, or we're weak, or even that we're broken. Then look at the way our culture talks about anxiety. We call it a disorder or a condition. It makes it sound like a permanent illness. The language we use suggests we have anxiety rather than we feel anxious. That only strengthens the idea that anxiety itself is something we can be afflicted with and is therefore something to fear. And of course, if you've ever been through a period where you felt really vulnerable or unsafe, your mind will sometimes connect the anxious feeling with danger, even when there isn't any danger there at all. But it can be important to remind ourselves of a very simple truth. Anxiety is not a threat. It's not your enemy. It's simply your mind's way of flagging up what it thinks is important right now. Any visceral response to anxiety isn't a malfunction, it's just us repeating the same mistake we've made many times, treating and reacting to anxiety as if it's a threat to our health, safety, or happiness. So what do we do about this? Well, as you'll often hear me say in these videos, the moment you stop fearing anxiety itself, your entire relationship with it changes. When you think about something that you fear, you get a very natural fear response. But if you think about something entirely benign, you don't. Think of it like a fear of spiders, something I often see clients for. When people come to see me, they often think the goal is to get to a place where if they see a spider on the ceiling, they can pick it up in a glass, carry it across the room and just put it outside. But when someone's genuinely free of that fear, here's what happens. They see a spider in the corner of the room and they just leave it there. It's not a threat. They don't have to get rid of it. They suddenly feel comfortable letting that little guy live there without feeling the need to evict him. Anxiety is the same. When you stop treating it like the big bad, it stops demanding all your focus and suddenly becomes one of those emotions that you're comfortable experiencing. You can coexist with it. It doesn't bother you. You don't notice it anymore. That doesn't mean you never feel it again. Of course you will, but you won't fear it anymore. And when you don't fear it, you barely, if at all, notice it. So a good starting point for this shift is, instead of scanning yourself for anxiety and then if you find it, trying to get rid of every trace of it, simply shift your understanding and as a result, your focus. Notice it without judgment. Let it be there if it wants to and just get on with your day. I've lost count of how many clients have described anxiety as debilitating, and yet it isn't. It's how we react to it that becomes debilitating if we place too much emphasis on its importance. And we only do that because we've started to fear it. So here's the good news. The real reason you're anxious isn't something outside of your control. It's not because you're broken, it's not because you're weak, and it's not because you're ill. It's because you've been mistakenly led to believe that anxiety itself is something to fear. But remember, anxiety is just an emotion, one of many you'll experience as a human being. And when you stop fearing it, you'll disable the number one main cause of your anxiety issue. And as a result, you'll feel a lot less anxious. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out this video next. I'm Tim Box. Always remember, be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.